This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show talking to you about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me pull up chat here. Where's chat? There's chat. All right, hopefully. It'll take a second for me to see you guys on YouTube, but welcome all. I'm going to get TikTok rolling here in a sec. Once I see your chat, I'll get TikTok rolling. La la la. There we are. There you are. You appeared. All right, give me a shout out back so I know you actually can hear me, which is always nice. Generally speaking, that is not an issue, but I'm always waiting one of these days for it to actually be an issue. But you should be able to hear me fine. Yes. And of course, it's like an 8-second delay, so I always have to ask and then wait for you guys to pop up. But anyway, hello all. Monday. Whew. Busy little day here. Some depressing. It's a little depressing news day, I'd say. Important news day, but a little depressing, sadly. So, oh well. Yes. Okay, there you are. Good. Thanks, Gunther. All right. Good. You guys are there. Let me get TikTok rolling here. TikTok's making me look orange. I have no idea why. Let's see if there's a filter on because TikTok does these things. Come on, TikTok. Enhance, filter. A little bit. Not really, though. No, not really. No, TikTok just is making me orange tonight. Okay, whatever. I will be orange. C'est la vie. Oh, wait, I got to make sure the chat. I've got to make sure I didn't make it chat only. All right, let me see here. Subscription. Sub only live off. Okay, no, we're good. We're good. Okay, this should be everybody. All right, welcome, guys. Good evening from Sweden. Hey, Jens. All right, let's see. Hopefully, TikTok, everything's working. Hey, Succeed, thank you. Woo, thank you for the gift. Oh, boy. So there's well, I'll tell people on TikTok in a second. There's some new gift gallery or something that TikTok set up, which is kind of cool. It looks like it's a way of giving you guys credit when you buy gifts, basically, when you support me through gifts. That somehow it throws something on the screen, or there's I don't see it on my end, but there's some gift gallery or something. Maybe I will see it on my end. Thank you, Crazy. Hey, Joe. There's somehow it'll show some gift gallery or something that'll show either the gifts you bought or if you buy a certain number of gifts. I don't know. Go check it out. Maybe somebody can tell me. Who's that? Thank you, Running. Maybe somebody can tell me if you see it on your end, the gift gallery on TikTok. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, welcome all. And the moderators, not that I want the moderators not to subscribe anymore, but the weekend show, TikTok finally gave me the ability. Thank you, John. Thank you, Super Hornet. TikTok finally gave me the ability to let the moderators come for free. They didn't let me do that before. So I've given the TikTok moderators little permission to come free. So not that I want you to cancel, but thank you for trying. I should be on the mirror mode already. Hey, Ash. Did I already switch it? I didn't switch it. Wait, there we go. There we go. Now it's switched. Okay. Sorry about that, Michael. I thought I had not switched it. Anyway, so yeah, let me know on TikTok if this gift gallery thing even makes sense. I have no idea. But supposedly that's something you can see now on the screen. No, I appreciate it. You're right. I forgot to switch it. But let me know. Maybe mods, you can tell me later. Thank you, Big Hawk. Any case, but once you click through there, it should tell you if you buy 20 hearts, you can be listed or something. Anyway. Hey, Joe, thank you for that. Anyway, so yeah, welcome all. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show I do with the latest news from Ukraine. Thank you, Ellie, for that. My dog is whining at the door because she wants to play with the neighbor, but we're not doing that till after the show. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Russell. So yeah, a lot of news today. A lot of it I think is very negative news. Sorry. Well, not all negative. I'm going to start with some negative stuff. Buon noche. Hey, Kempy. Some negative stuff, and then we'll switch to some positive too. Thank you, Sean, and Running, and Red. So many gifts tonight. Thank you, guys. So, hey, Pindos. So the way that I do the show is I go through the news of the day, try to pick the stories I think are relevant, important, give you a sense of where the battle is going with Ukraine, and then open it up to questions. Sometimes I take questions at the first part too. It just kind of depends. I don't like to get too confused. Thank Cool Code. Thank you, Cool. And thank Jazek. Thank you. So we'll get rolling. And by the way, The reason I mention the gifts is because this is my full-time job. I actually do this for a living, and I've been doing this for 2 years now, and your guys' gifts help me pay the bills. So please keep them coming. Thank you. Hey, Martin. Hey, Cheryl. Thank you for that. Jazak. So let's get rolling. So today is day 723 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Thank you, Bonnie, for the roses. I want to start with something a little negative, but then we'll go to something a little positive, which are some new polls in the U.S. Thank you, Dark Phoenix. Cheryl. I am really convinced now. Hey, Kevin, thank you for that. That we are at greater risk of war with Russia. I just keep hearing this from the Europeans. Thank you, Running, and they're from the European military experts. There is clearly concern. I mean, I've heard from people within several NATO allies. Thank you, Martin. We're also seeing it public because we know that too. Right? I mean, we know a number of officials in Britain, and I'm trying to even think now, Finland, I think, other places talking about the potential for war with Russia. And I was thinking about this today, and the irony is we are in a greater chance, thank you, Solak, and Sasha's groceries too, we are at a greater chance of going to war with Russia, a greater chance than any time in the last 30 years since the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. Not because we are at war with Russia in Ukraine. We are at greater chance of going to war with Russia because we are no longer, at least America, engaged with the war against Russia and Ukraine. Now, I am not one of these people who gets too upset when the pro-Russian folks go, it's a proxy war. And I'm always like, yeah, it is. Hey, Bonnie. We're all supposed to say, no, it's not. Sure, it's a proxy war. And by proxy war, what I mean is, this isn't just Ukraine's war. This is all of us. American weapons, and your weapons, by the way, all of you NATO folks, American weapon and Canada, well, Canada is NATO, all of your weapons are killing Russian troops. I mean, let's not pretend they're not. We are clearly in a proxy war with Russia already, but it's by a proxy, though, it means there's somebody in between, the Ukrainians, thank you, Jeremy, and we're not at full-fledged war, or they'd be bombing us and we'd be bombing them, right? So it's not full-fledged, but it is to some degree. The issue is that we have now pulled out of that proxy war. Thank you, Eva. The U.S. is now providing zero in aid to Ukraine. Zero. No money, no weapons. Russia knows it. Russia's taking advantage of it. They just took the town of Avdiivka this weekend. And the experts seem to think that it's because the U.S. cut off aid to Ukraine that helped Russia finally cinch it and take the town. Go visit outside. And then you had Donald Trump last week. Donald Trump, a week ago actually, telling Putin to invade Europe and saying that America will not come to the aid of any European country who has not paid at least 2% of its GDP to defense spending, and that he urged Putin to invade Europe. Now, what is so dangerous about that is, and the Trumpers, I love how they like to sort of, cut the baby in half on this and go, well, he didn't say Putin should invade all of Europe. He just said Putin should invade that part of Europe that isn't paying enough for their own defense. Well, yeah, except the way NATO works, if Putin invades Europe, all of Europe is going to war, right? The Brits are clearly going to war. I mean, if Putin invades, he's going after the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. He's going after Poland. Any of those countries get invaded, and Britain, at the very least, is going to get involved. Thank you, Anastasia. A lot of other NATO countries will too. The Scandinavian countries would get involved. The Brits will get involved. The Brits have nuclear weapons, by the way. So if the Brits get involved, you've now got two nuclear powers at war. If Britain gets involved, by the way, and when I say involved, I mean if the UK declares war on Russia, come on in, you. The dog wants to not visit. If the UK has to declare war on Russia because Russia declares war on the UK, you don't think America is getting involved in that war? Of course we're getting involved in that war. France does have nuclear weapons. I'm still not totally convinced what role France would play if Putin were to invade. I hope they would get involved as well. But France has nukes. The Brits have nukes. America would go to war if Putin invaded Europe. We would have no choice. Frankly, we've already had 2 world wars like this where America was being isolationist and didn't want to go to war, and we were forced to because we are too intimately tied to Europe, economically, culturally, everything else. This is, sorry, Annie has a quick question on regards to this, so I'll take Annie's question. How can so many Republican members of Congress seem to support Putin? I can't wrap my head around it, even if Trump does. What am I missing? I don't know, Annie. I mean, I call it a cult. I was a Republican until I was probably 30 years old or so. Well, 30 years old. Yeah. I worked for a Republican United States senator. I did arms control for a United States Republican senator. I mean, I know firsthand what Republicans think on foreign policy, what they think, not just foreign policy, on national security. Thank you, Jonathan. And it boggles my mind that any Republican today would coddle Vladimir Putin, would look at Putin and say, you know, that's a good man we should emulate. Would go to Russia, like Tucker Carlson did, who's the far-right Russian propagandist, one of the biggest MAGA supporters here in the U.S. Thank you, Pedro. That Tucker Carlson would go to Russia and go, what a neat country. Things work great here. Isn't that great? Right? That thinks grocery stores are cheap in Russia, and it shows how bad America is, without either knowing, although he probably knew and was lying because that's kind of his shtick, without actually telling people the reason grocery stores are cheap in Russia is because they make 1/5 of the income we make in the U.S. Okay? Americans on average make around $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Russians on average make $1,000 a month. Imagine making $12,000 a year. Do you think you're going to the expensive grocery stores? No. The average Russian makes $12,000 a year. That's why grocery stores in Russia don't cost anything, because the Russians have no money. That's why. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, hello. Thank you, Charles. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with the Republicans. Donald Trump has a fixation with Vladimir Putin, whether he's been corrupted by Putin, whether Putin's got dirt on him, whether Putin's blackmailing him, or whether Trump has been bribed by Putin. And he wants something from Putin that Putin told him he'll get as long as he keeps sucking up to Russia, giving away our defense secrets like Trump has done to Russia, for example. I don't know. But there is something corrupt with Donald Trump in terms of what he does with Vladimir Putin. And it is, thank you, Bonnie, it is something that Americans used to understand, and Republicans especially. I mean, Republicans would string you up, by the feet, by the neck, actually, if you did this with Russia of all dictatorships. And the fact that Republicans in Congress are willing to suck up to this, thank you, King, I have no idea why. I really don't. I think it boggles my mind, and that's why I'm finally kind of speaking out on it. Thank you, Lori. I've been trying to, it is a nice sunset tonight, yeah. I've been trying to sort of not get into the Republican versus Democrat thing because everyone agreed on Ukraine. Not anymore. Republicans knifed Ukraine in the back. Republicans are supporting Vladimir Putin in this war. Republicans are the reason that Putin has just taken over a major American town. Frankly, Republicans are the reason that Putin just killed his top political opponent. You don't think Putin looked at that and said, well, Donald Trump just told me to go invade Europe? You don't think Putin listened to that and said, this is the perfect time for me to kill this guy I've been trying to kill for years? Thank you, Jessica. Absolutely, Trump. I mean, Trump's dangerous statements had a role, clearly. Anyway, my point in sort of raising this was, we are now at a greater chance of going, not only a greater chance of going to war with Russia, but we weren't at much of a chance of going to war with Russia these last 30 years. Not really. I mean, during the Cold War, yes, but the last 30 years, not really. Thank you, Monica. We are now. And you know what? Somebody says Dems aren't corrupt. I got news for you. Democrats haven't turned to foreign. The leader of the Democratic Party didn't embrace a foreign enemy and choose their side over the United States, which Trump did. The leader of the Democrats isn't under indictment on 91 charges. The leader of the Democrats, by the way, was being accused, the Republicans were going to impeach him for some cockamamie story about Ukraine and Burisma. Guess what happened to that story last week? The FBI indicted the chief witness for lying about the entire thing. I'm not saying Democrats are necessarily pure, but I've got news for you. Donald Trump is a criminal. Donald Trump is corrupt. Donald Trump has no morals, no ethics. He sexually abuses women. He's a racist. He stole money from the American coffers. He used his position as president to enrich himself. He stole classified information. He then gave classified information to the Russians. He gave it to some guy in Australia, gave our nuclear secrets to some guy in Australia. And now he's siding with a dictator over America. By the way, he also said American soldiers are suckers and losers. Each and every single thing I just said, Google and check it out for yourself. Thank you, Ellie. Every single thing I just said, Google and check it out for yourself. So we are in an incredibly dangerous moment. And honestly, for years, we all have been saying how dangerous this was. The Republican Party was willing to embrace Donald Trump, who hates America and frankly is corrupt. It is a treasonous corruption with Trump. Thank you, Adventures. Thank you, Chris. It is a treasonous corruption with Trump. And we've been warning for years about it, and it's finally come home. Thank you, Chris. We are now at increased risk of a World War III because of this man. He's not even president, and he threw us into the beginnings of World War III. Thank you, Jetta. No, I will keep speaking out about him, and it's sad because Republicans were on board with Ukraine, and there was no reason to even mention Republican versus Democrat. And now Democrats support Ukraine, Republicans support Russia over America, over America's national interests. It is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. Oh, Biden has some responsibility. Halo says Biden has no responsibility. No, Biden has some responsibility. And we're going to talk about that. Biden's problem, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stocks. Biden's problem is that he didn't want to help Ukraine enough. He didn't give Ukraine enough help. He gave Ukraine a lot of help. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Brooks. He gave Ukraine enough help to stop them from being overrun by the Russians. Thank you, Irene. But what Biden did, Biden was afraid to help Ukraine win. He wanted to stop Ukraine from losing. So he gave them enough weapons so they couldn't get overrun by the Russians, but he wouldn't give them enough weapons to win because Biden was afraid of angering Vladimir Putin. In the Republicans' case, it's literally they want to please Vladimir Putin. They want to give him Ukraine. Trump's already said he wants to give him Europe. So yeah, Democrats aren't perfect, but find me the Democratic president who was literally in bed with America's enemies, stole nuclear secrets, and gave those nuclear secrets to foreigners. Find me the American president that slipped classified information in the Oval Office to the Russians. His name is Donald Trump. Ask the Ukrainians about it. It was a huge news. The Israelis, it was a huge story. Trump gave away information about an Israeli asset in, I think it was Lebanon or Syria, in the Oval Office to the Russians, to the Russian ambassador. It was actually the ambassador and I think the foreign minister. Both of them were there. It is absolutely sickening. And any of the trolls here, A, get rid of them, and B, go Google for yourself. Every single thing I've said has been proven and is already known. There is nothing I'm telling you about. It's absolutely sickening. Well, you know what, Halo? I don't want my taxes funding you either. But we live in I don't even know if you're American. You may not be. But guess what? I don't want my taxes funding you. That's not the way taxes work. You don't get to pick and choose where your money goes. Because I wouldn't have any of my money go to your family or your state or your city. But fortunately, that's not the way we work because we're not a dictatorship. So U.S. national interest. And by the way, let's move on to the new poll showing that Americans still think that Ukraine actually is really important to the U.S. national interest. And that's the point. This is the really point, is that Trump Republicans and MAGA Republicans, they're not even the majority of the Republican Party. They're like half of the Republican Party, which makes them 25% of the U.S., and they control everything out of fear of violence. It's literally fascism. It's literally fascism. Getting back to Annie's question about how is it that Republicans are willing to do this? Because they are scared for their lives. They're scared for their families. Trump has scared the hell out of them because he's embraced violence. And by the way, Trump's language is the language of violence. Thank you, Ellie, which is also the thing that freaks me out. This weekend, yet again, not this weekend, this morning, yet again, Trump put out a tweet this morning on his social media, his other social media site, put out a tweet this morning claiming he's Alexi Navalny. When you look at, by the way, didn't criticize Putin. He hasn't criticized Putin's murder of Navalny. The man is running for president. He's going to be the Republican nominee, and he's the former American president, and he hasn't even said anything about Navalny criticizing Putin, okay? Nothing. What did Trump do? He came out today and issued a social media statement where and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm Alexei Navalny. Look what they're doing to me. Look what they're doing in our country. It's an embarrassment what's happening in our country. Trump excused Vladimir Putin's murder of his political opponent. Okay? I'm looking at the sunset again. Excused Vladimir Putin's murder of his political opponent by saying what America does is worse, and it's not the first time. Trump said the same thing about the U.S. military. When CNN, I think it was Jake Tapper, tried to get Trump during an interview way at the beginning, either Trump was just president or right before Trump became president, and tried to get Trump to basically say something negative about Vladimir Putin, and Jake said, But Putin, he's a murderer. And Trump goes, you don't think we're murderers too? You don't think our military goes and kills people? Thank you, Juan. He compared U.S. troops to the Russians. No, just in any case, a new Pew poll. This was very interesting. So this was a new poll. Pew is a super duper respected pollster in the U.S. Just very respected. That's all I can tell you. They did a poll about voters' attitudes. Sorry, Bash, let me see what Brash had really quick. A super chat question. Thank you for that. Do you think two countries, both with nuclear weapons, go to war with each other without using nuclear weapons? It is possible, yes, because the problem is one of those countries is Russia, which I don't trust. Because basically, I've sort of said, and I've sort of come around on this thinking about Ukraine for the last 2 years. From a Western perspective, nuclear weapons are simply useful for stopping the other guy from using his nuclear weapons. Meaning, I'm the United States. I get to war. Or even better, I'm Britain. I go to war with Russia. Thank you. Who is that? Kin or Kinash? I'm going to say Kinash. That'll be my guess. Thank you for the heart there, and thank you, Kemps, for the rose. The Brits have nuclear weapons. Let's say they go to war with Russia over Poland or something. Putin invades. All the British nuclear weapons do is, thank you, Vicky, is help stop the Russians from using their nuclear weapons. As TikTok Henry just said, they're a deterrent. Thank you, Kyle. Right? They're a deterrent. Thank you, BJ, for the rose. They don't really stop, but they're a deterrent against using nukes. They don't stop Russia from invading Poland. If I were Russia, I'd say, okay, Britain's got nuclear weapons. Even America has nuclear weapons. If I invade Eastern Europe, I invade Estonia, and maybe I invade Poland. The Americans might come and stop me, but they might not, because now Trump has said he wants me to invade. The Brits would still try to stop me, right? Thank you, Parda. But the Brits aren't going to stop me by dropping nukes on me, because the Brits know if they drop nukes on me, I'm Putin, right? And I invade Estonia. If the Brits drop nukes on me, guess what I'm doing? I'm dropping nukes on the Brits. Doesn't benefit, right? So all the British nuclear weapons do is they guarantee that the Russians won't use their nuclear weapons, because otherwise the Brits would use it back. Oh, we do have a lot of... Sorry, Ash, and I don't know if Callum's here today. We have a lot of trolls today, don't we? Yeah, I just saw that one. But so you see what I mean? So not my concern, but from the Western side, we don't use nukes. Nukes only hopefully stop Russia from using theirs. From Russia's side, it gets a little more complicated. Thank you, Taylor. There was an interesting analysis maybe a month ago and from Europe, and the concern was that the Russians don't think this way. That the Russians think that maybe they can get away with using their nukes. Right? Maybe they could invade Eastern Europe and drop a nuke or two and so scare the Americans, scare the MAGA, the MAGA, what's the word I'm looking for? It's fifth columnists, but I'm trying to find a better word for it. But the MAGA sycophants to Russia, Russia's fans in the U.S., their fifth column, the MAGA crowd, that they would so scare them that Putin dropping a nuke wouldn't convince them to respond with a nuke. It would convince them to respond and go, stop the madness. And by the way, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, they would probably blame us if Putin used a nuke, right? J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, could you imagine, right? Oh, well, they would have never nuked us if America didn't have nuclear weapons in the first place. They would never nuke us if America didn't have a democracy. Our democracy was an affront to Russia. It's, yeah. In any case, all right, so listen to this Pew poll, very interesting. So the Pew is a very good pollster here in America. Very interesting. And they did a poll on how Americans perceive three conflicts, China and Taiwan, Hamas and Israel, or Israel and the Palestinians, whatever, and Russia, Ukraine. And they asked them, A, do you see this conflict as being relevant to the U.S. national interest? And do you see it relevant to you personally? Which I thought was very interesting. Because the first, right, so one of them is this conflict relevant to you personally? And the other one is it relevant to the U.S. national interest? Now, listen to this. I'm going to start with personally, okay? Personally, and this is overall, and then I'm going to break it down by party, because even among Republicans, it was very strong, which this is a positive poll. Listen to this. U.S. national, let's do it personally. So is this conflict important to you personally? The war between Hamas and Israel, 33% somewhat, 32% very, 65% of Americans. The war between Russia and Ukraine, 59% of Americans. Tensions between China and Taiwan, 57% of Americans. That's people saying it personally is important to them. Those are pretty good numbers because let's face it, Taiwan and China, it's not really personally important to a lot of Americans, right? You'd think. Like, you know what I mean? Even Ukraine, it's pretty far away. You know, how is it personally important? But the numbers are pretty good. Then you look at the same people asked, do you think those conflicts are important to U.S. national interests? You'd think the number might be less. Like, yeah, it's important to me, but I don't know if it's important to the country. It's the opposite. People found that even people who said the conflict wasn't that important to them personally said the conflict was definitely in the American national interest, which is fascinating because they're saying, oh no, this is important to our country. Personally, I don't care, but I get that at a national level, this is really important to our country. So listen to this. The war between Israel and Hamas. Do you see this conflict as important to U.S. interests? 75%, yes. The tensions between China and Taiwan, 75%, yes, important to U.S. national interests. The war between Russia and Ukraine, 74%, yes, important to U.S. national interests. That's interesting. Again, the war between, let's just Ukraine now, the war between Russia and Ukraine, 74% of Americans said they see that battle as in the U.S. national interest. Only 59% said they find it personally important to them. So 59% said it's personally important, Russia and Ukraine, but 74% said, but it is important to the United States. Now, I'm going to get to the breakdown of Republicans versus Democrats because what's interesting about this to me is you could have people that on a personal level say, I don't care, right? I just don't really care about this issue. But most of them are still willing to say, but it matters to the country. This is important to the country, right? So let me tell you the breakdown. This was fascinating. The breakdown by party. So Democrats and Republicans on whether the war in Ukraine is important to U.S. national interests, okay? 81% Democrats say important to the national interest. 69% of Republicans say the war in Russia and Ukraine is important to U.S. national interest. 69% is really strong. I mean, in a free country, we don't get 90. Only in Russia do you get 90% of the people agreeing on anything, right? 69% is damn strong. Now, the numbers that were asked whether the war is important to you personally, okay? Russia and Ukraine. 65% of Democrats, 56% of Republicans. Let me look at this again. The war between Russia and Ukraine. 65% of Democrats say it's important to them personally. 81% of Democrats say it's important to the nation. So even if they don't think it matters to them personally, they think it matters to the nation. Republicans, 56% of Republicans say the war between Russia and Ukraine matters to them personally, is important to them personally. That's 56%. But 69% of Republicans say it's important to the country, to our national interests. You get where I'm going with this, is I think that there's an interesting split, not even split in the polls. I think when we hear people say Ukraine doesn't matter to them, they're saying that on a personal level. They're saying, yeah, like the Ukraine thing in Russia, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not finding it important. But when you push them and you say, but does it matter to the nation? They'll say, oh, it's very important to the U.S. in terms of our national interest. That's something you can work with if you're trying to win people over. No, I think, Carrie says that's unexpected. No, I agree. And Pew is an excellent polling outfit. I mean, they're just, like I said, they are the top of the list as far as credible polling outfits. And they tend to do very large polls. Thank you, Blue Ariel. So it's just very interesting. Alexi Navalny. So you guys know we talked about how Putin murdered, and everyone thinks he did it, murdered his top opposition leader on Friday, Alexi Navalny. The reason we say he did it is because he tried to murder him 4 years before. I should say assassinate, not murder. He poisoned him with Novichok, which is a Soviet-era nerve agent, chemical weapon basically. And Navalny almost died. He was able to go to Germany for treatment, and it was the German doctors who uncovered that it was Novichok, that they used the Russians. I mean, who else used the Soviet-era nerve agent to poison Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, when he was in the Russian Far East in Siberia, right? It was Putin. Anyway, So no one thing. All the experts say there's no way that this guy just died by chance. He died now. Combination. A, the Europeans were having a huge Munich security forum, a big security conversation in Europe, and Putin thought he'd kill the guy just to kind of go, look what I can do. He's also doing it to send a message at home. He's doing it to send a message to us, right? I mean, thank you, adventures. I don't think there's any coincidence that it was literally less than a week after Donald Trump said, Vladimir Putin, please invade Europe, that Putin turned around and decided to murder his political opponent. You show weakness, and this is what dictators do. In any case, Navalny, the latest, his family went, his mother, I think, went to see the body. They won't let her. Navalny's people are saying the Russians are now telling them, the Russian government, they're not going to let them even see the body for 14 days. And the thinking is they're doing it because whatever chemical agent they used to kill him, they have some chemical agents. I was watching a CIA guy on TV today. They've got some chemical agents that actually break down in the body. And the idea is if you wait long enough, the chemical agent will dissolve and go away so that once then there's an autopsy by somebody else, they'll never be able to find the chemical agent. They killed the guy, guys. They killed him. Why wouldn't you let the mother come and even see his body, right? Of course you'd let the mother see. By the way, they're even claiming they don't know where it is. That's the other thing. The Russians literally today went, oh, we don't know where he is. We don't know where he is, right? It could be anywhere. I mean, they know. The man was the most important opposition leader in Russia. He was murdered by Vladimir Putin. They know where he is, where his body is. Thank you, Chazak. 14 days. 400 Russians have been arrested now for publicly mourning, placing flowers at memorials for Navalny. I told you about Trump. Oh, I do have his quote here. So the quote from Trump today. Trump has, as of yet, not criticized Navalny. He's refused to criticize, not Navalny, he's refused to criticize Putin. Thank you, Critter. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. Remember, I do this for free, and literally, this is my job. So, this is, your gifts help me pay the bills, so keep them coming. Thank you for that. Trump said in his social media site today that the death of Navalny, quote, now here's the thing. You'd think the death of Navalny, hey, Critter, thank you. And thank you, whatever mod got that person spamming. Thank you. Thank you, Allie. Oh, and R19, everyone's here. And Martin, everyone's here. Thank you, guys. We've got all the hands coming on TikTok. So Trump, finally, 3 days, Trump says nothing about Navalny being murdered. Nothing. And I did forget to mention that. Monica just said his wife announced today, Navalny's wife, that she's taking over the organization. Thank you, S. Ginger. And going to be working, basically running the opposition organization of her husband now, because it's what he'd want. Incredibly dangerous for her to be doing. I mean, incredible. Putin could easily try to kill her too. Thank you, Richard. So, I mean, the braveness. Navalny had his flaws, but he gave his life to try to overthrow that dictator, and clearly gave. He did. He knew he was going to die if he came back, and he came back anyway. So anyway, here's what Trump said today. So Trump finally issued a statement 3 days late about Navalny's murder. Thank you, Richard, for the hat, if I didn't already, about Navalny's murder. And Trump says this: the death of Navalny made me more and more aware of what is happening in our country. I mean, right? This is the man. You guys, the Americans may be familiar. You guys in Europe may not. Christmas and stuff, traditionally on Christmas or Easter, Christmas especially, Trump puts out a tweet excoriating his political opponents and half of America that didn't vote for him. Thank you, Cassandra. Literally, you can Google it. The statements Trump has issued on Christmas are the most vile, angry, nasty things you've ever seen. You can't even imagine any human being doing this, let alone a politician. He's not well in the. He's a fascist. He is a fascist. He's prone to violence. It's something a violent person would say. Well, so here's what Trump said about Navalny being murdered after 3 days of silence. Navalny's death made me more and more aware of what is happening in our country, right? Making excuses for the murder. It is a slow, steady progression with crooked, radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down a path of destruction. Open borders, rigged elections, and grossly unfair courtroom decisions are destroying America. We are a nation in decline, a falling nation. Trump just said America is a nation in decline and a falling nation because Putin murdered Navalny. He didn't just turn it and make it about himself. He suggested that what Putin is doing isn't that bad because we do the same thing in America. Okay? How screwed up is that? I mean, it's not just a lie. You'd have to be a moron and an idiot, or frankly, a traitor to even believe these things, right? I mean, you'd have to be one of these idiots who thinks the election was stolen, which, by the way, 70% of Republicans do, but they're crazy people at this point. They're a member of a cult. They're a member of a fascist cult at this point, right? I mean, there's like zero chance. There's zero chance. I mean, that it boggles my mind, but it really does. It boggles my mind that Republicans are just willing to go along with this. You know, and what really worries me too is this is the language of violence here. Thank you, Laura. This is absolutely the language of violence, what Trump is using. If you tell people, mind you, okay, you tell people the elections are rigged. Mind you, the elections are rigged, okay? Courtroom decisions are rigged. So, literally, when you vote for president, the right man will not win because the election will be stolen from you. If you go to court, they will steal that from you. That we jail our political opposition, Trump is claiming. Guys, that is a call to violence. And I've said this before, and you've got to be kind of careful how you talk about it in our country, because, you know, in any country in the West, we tend not to call for violence because it's kind of illegal, and it's also kind of a bad thing. If you tell people that literally, imagine this though, in a democracy in the West, if you tell people that literally the presidential or your prime minister election is stolen and it doesn't exist anymore, I'm not talking metaphorically, that quite literally these national elections aren't real. They're not the actual ballots, and they're putting in fake people, right? And telling you that if you go to court, the judges are going to throw it out and they're going to throw your guy in jail because it's all one big conspiracy. The judges, the prosecutors, the state level, the local level, the federal level, it's all a huge conspiracy to throw your guy in prison, and the judges don't care because we're not a democracy anymore. That is it's not just projection, it is projection. That is a call for violence because you don't have anything left. If the elections are literally stolen and the wrong guy is being made president, there are no other option. And you can't go to the courts because the courts are stolen too. There is no other option than violence. I mean, I don't even think it's debatable. There's literally no other option because your country has now been taken over. It's been taken over in a dictatorship, really, or a coup. That is what really bothers me. And his people, again, don't care because violence is okay if it's Trump. You know, anyway. Okay. Avdiivka, more bad news. Avdiivka finally fell this weekend. That's the Ukrainian city that the Russians have been trying to get forever. They've been throwing a ton of troops at it. And in the last week or so, actually, or 2 weeks, or the couple of weeks, actually, the Russians have been doing very well in that town. And a lot of defense experts say it's because Republicans in Congress cut off aid to Ukraine. And that cut off in aid, by the way, one person who said this last week, thank you, Courtney, who said this last week, that the Republicans in Congress cutting off aid to Ukraine, there's zero U.S. aid going now, zero money, zero weapons to Ukraine from the U.S. as a result of Republicans cutting off all American support. Thank you, Adam. The chief national correspondent or national security correspondent for Fox News. Fox News is our big right-wing, like the biggest right-wing news outfit here in America. Super MAGA, super Trump. The chief national security correspondent of Fox News called out congressional Republicans. I mean, she called out Congress, but she called out Republicans and blamed them. Thank you, Dawn, for Avdiivka falling, for this town that fell to the Russians this weekend, and said it's because Congress, I forgot the word she used, abominable? The word she used was horrific, basically, that Republicans were responsible for this town falling. Yeah, it was astounding. Mind you, Fox News' national security correspondent, which is the Republican news network out there. A little more here. Institute for Study, ISW, I'll skip. I'm trying to skip a little bit of this because it's not really any additional news. Oh, this was good news, a little bit of good news. Lithuania's defense minister says that Ukraine may receive its first F-16 fighter jets this June. This was reported in Foreign Policy magazine. He said, actually, I'm going to guess it's a he. Aravosis Arvydas Anusauskas. God, your names are wild in Lithuania. If Arvydas is a guy, and I'm guessing it is, but who knows? Oh, I remember. No, the Lithuanian, I'm not sure, actually. Maybe he's a guy. It's a he. Okay, he's a he. I think that in June, we will see them in Ukraine, he said. And a final little point here, which, first of all, that's good. If Ukraine starts to have MiGs, or I should say F-16s, fighter jets available in June, would be amazing. Ukrainian military spokesperson said something interesting today, because you probably, like me, were wondering, how is Ukraine going to protect these planes, right? You know, how are the Russians not going to bomb them? What he said today was, ideally, we would hide everything underground as Iran does, or build reinforced concrete storage facilities that would withstand ballistic missiles. Setting up air defenses to protect the planes against missile and drone attacks is also an important step. The only problem is it also apparently takes a while to do that. So we shall see. Another big story today that kind of got me, it's funny, Callum, I think, thought it was a good thing. I got kind of pissed off about this story. So there's a story from NBC News today that the White House and the Pentagon are now leaning towards giving Ukraine the ATACMS long-range missiles that the Ukrainians and the defense experts have said Ukraine's needed for about 2 years now. That's nice, now that we can't give it to them because Congress cut off all aid. Now that we're, like, literally, now that all aid's been cut off, the Biden administration is thinking, hey, maybe we should have given them those missiles that all of us have been talking about for 2 years now, that Biden said, oh, no, it would be too dangerous. And now, and by the way, which Ali just picked up, it didn't say Biden has decided that Ukraine needs to get them. It said the White House is leaning towards. You're leaning towards? Really? You're leaning towards. I mean, that means you're thinking, I don't know, maybe. And you leaked that to the media? Like, you leaked a story and the media fell for it. A story saying, maybe, right? You're leaning towards. If we're 2 years into this war, Ukraine's starting to lose. I mean, they're not losing big time because Russia's military has been destroyed, but they're starting to lose towns as a result of U.S. cutting off aid. And they're certainly stuck in a stalemate. And the stalemate is Biden's fault for sure. I mean, Biden from the beginning, and French and Germans too, but Biden from the beginning did not want Ukraine to win this war. He wanted to stop Russia from winning the war. He wanted to help Ukraine get some of its land back, but not all of it. Thank you, Jeddah, because we never wanted Ukraine to get Crimea because that would anger Putin. And by the way, this NBC story said just that. It said the reason we never gave Ukraine the long-range ATACMS missiles, which are the ones we're now talking about, well, we're not going to give it to them because we can't, but that Biden's now thinking, gosh, maybe we should have given it to them, is because A, Biden was afraid Ukraine would use the missiles to attack Russia. Mind you, that's true of every weapon system we've given Ukraine. They could use it to attack Russia. They haven't attacked Russia with any of them. We made them promise, and they've not. Okay, the French and the Brits gave the Ukrainians their cruise missiles. They were kind of made them in tandem. Each has its own name for it. A Scalp and what is it for the British name? I'm spacing out today. The British cruise missile. The Scalps are the French, and the Storm Shadow is the Brits. And the those missiles can go, whether they can go 250 miles, whatever they are. They'll go far enough to hit Russia. They promise not to use it against Russia. They're not in Russia. So that argument is BS from the Biden administration. The second thing that NBC said, this one cracked me up because it backed me up. The Biden administration to date has not wanted to give ATACMS missiles, the long-range ones, to the Ukrainians because A, they were afraid the Ukrainians would attack Russia itself, Russia land itself, and B, they were afraid the Ukrainians would attack Crimea. I told you. I freaking told you. NBC reported today that the White House and the Pentagon were afraid if we gave the Ukrainians these weapons, they would use it to attack Crimea, which is their own land the Russians are occupying in order to try to get it back. Because Biden doesn't want Ukraine to get Crimea back. Biden thinks it'll make Putin angry. I got to tell you, and now he's considering it? Like, that's nice of you. Now that Ukraine's totally effed, you suddenly decided to give them a weapon system that you've been refusing this whole time? Not to mention, thank you, Tarmo, not to mention, had Biden decided to give them the damn weapon system a year ago or even 6 months ago, he could have, because he could have done it under a previous legislation that was out there for giving Ukraine aid. But he didn't. Yeah, he's been hoping for a stalemate. That's exactly it. No, it is absolutely infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. All right, a little bit more here. A Russian, you may remember the story. The Russian helicopter pilot who defected last summer. And remember, he was able to get out with his family, his immediate family, I guess wife and kid. His parents came. He also ended up having to kill his crewmates because he offered them to come with and they said no, and flew into Ukraine with his helicopter, got $500,000. Well, it looks like he was just murdered in Spain by the Russians. They came and they found him and they murdered him. And murdered him on NATO territory because this is what they do. And I mean, honestly, at some point, are we ever going to do anything about the Russians just coming onto our territory? I mean, I hope we do this as much to them as they do it to us, because it's like nonstop, the Russians killing people in our countries. To the Brits, all the time to the frickin' Brits. They've done it. I think they've done it to us. I think they did do it. I'm trying to remember. There was something in the U.S. Wasn't that the Florida one or something? There was something in the U.S. that I recall from the Russians as well. But they do it to the Brits, and now they're doing it to the Spaniards as well. Real quick. Hungary is reportedly ready to approve Sweden joining NATO. I put it down on the list because I don't believe a thing Hungary says. Orban said this weekend, our legislature, when it comes back in a couple weeks, they're ready, or they're probably ready. He gave some hedge word, they're probably ready to approve NATO, Sweden joining NATO. We just have a few differences to iron out. And I read that and I went, what differences? There were no differences. Hungary had no differences. Hungary agreed about, its leader, who's the supreme leader. He's a quasi-dictator in Hungary. He had agreed at the beginning that Sweden should join NATO and it was okay. And now they're trying to claim there are differences that have to be. There are no differences. He's another Putin crony like Trump. He's in Putin's pocket, and he has been from the beginning. Hates Ukraine, hates NATO. It's very much like Trump, really. Which is why the Republican Party is also so close to Hungary. Very scary thing there. They hold conventions. The official Republican Party in America holds conventions now in Hungary because, again, Tucker Carlson, their lead mouthpiece for really fascism in our country, but also the dictators abroad, like Putin and Orban. Tucker Carlson has been a big fan of Orban and the dictatorship he's running there. Really sick. Ukraine shot down 2 Russian fighter jets this morning. That was a big deal. And let me see here. Canada's going to donate 800 drones to Ukraine. Oh, and this was my favorite story. So I'm going to end on this one, and then we'll do questions. The Russian Federal Security Service raided a convention in Russia this weekend, shut it down for violating the gay propaganda law, because there's a law in Russia that several American states, like Florida, do this too. But in Florida's case, it's you can't promote gay propaganda in the schools. Now, gay propaganda in Florida or Russia means anything that presents gay people as normal is considered propaganda, okay? In America, they do it in schools. At the federal, they can't do it nationally. They can't, freedom of speech issue, they can't make it illegal publicly for me to say being gay is okay. In Russia, you can't. In Russia, it is illegal. Well, the Russian federal security people raided a convention of My Little Pony. It was a My Little Pony convention because they said it was too gay. And the organizers, of course, got wind that the police were coming, and they had to shut down the convention. Keep in mind, this is literally within a day or two of them murdering the top opposition leader. So they were like, they weren't going to play any games. It was, My Little Pony. And I did Google it, but people said Google the bronies. I did Google the bronies. There's like all these people who are adults who are big fans of My Little Pony. My Little Pony, I'd only heard about it. I'm really not familiar. It was a toy in the early 1980s America, created by one of our big toy companies, Hasbro. And they tried to create almost like a cartoon to go with it, but to sell the toy. Well, several iterations later of the cartoon, thank you, Adventures, something like 4 iterations later, it actually became a good, I've never watched it. It actually became a good cartoon. And now has like this cult following of young guys. Men, but guys in their 20s who like love My Little Pony. And the Russians thought that was just a little too gay and they shut down the conference. It just, Absolutely amazing. Any case, all right, I like the Teletubbies, exactly. Yep, Putin was just scared of My Little Pony. Anyway, all right, guys. So let's do our Q&A, hangout, etc. I'm here. Let's talk. Oh, my. Anyway, just craziness. So, yeah, what else is going on, guys? Like I said, it's kind of an annoying news day. I'm kind of pissed today because I feel like the Europeans are right. We're kind of heading towards war. Now, war may not happen for 10 years, but we are full-fledged now back to the Soviet Union, and it didn't happen because Biden challenged Russia. It happened because the Republicans didn't. Thank you, Prince Philip. Who's it? Christine? Thank you. Oh, I did see this, but I didn't. Somebody told me I didn't see the story. Something about Denmark. Hey, let me check this out. Denmark selling all of its artillery or something. Let me pull this up. Okay, the Guardian's got it because I trust them. I don't trust a lot of other people. Oh, no, this is a video. Denmark is sending its entire artillery to Ukraine, the Danish Prime Minister said, speaking at the Munich Security Conference. She appealed to other nations to do more. They're asking us for ammunition now, artillery now. From the Danish side, we decided to, thank you for the hat there. Who is that, Mario? From the Danish side, we decided to donate our entire artillery, she said. Wow. Good for them. Wow. Now, how much is that? Is it significant or how much really is that? Just curious. It's still a big deal. That's great. Wow. Thank you, Macabre. Good for them. Well, and part of the issue here too is, guys, it's only a matter of time before we're going to war with these guys at the rate things are going. And would you rather stop a war now or make a war more likely? If we don't challenge Russia now, war is more likely in my view. And the Danes are right. They might as well give it up now, and try to stop this war from spreading. Thank you. Is that Tom? Thank you, Tom, for the heart. No idea, Wilson. I don't know what that is. So wait, so they're giving that G. Are the Danes giving actual artillery pieces or ammunition? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, which are they giving? From what you just wrote, if you're talking about this, yeah, you guys are talking about pieces. So 100 to 150 or so artillery, meaning artillery guns. But how many artillery shells are coming? That's the thing they're really, at least we hear, that's what they really need, right? I assume it's some shells too, because they've got some shells, right? Interesting. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, all of it, but how much is all is what I meant. 500,000? No way. No way, Adam. Is it that many shells? Get out of here. That's insane. Get out of here. Could it be that many? I'm trying to, I hate this. I put my glasses down and I lose them. Okay, you guys are all over the place. Somebody needs to Google this because literally some of you are saying 100,000 and some of you are saying 1 million. One of you is clearly wildly off. Let me pull this and see. The problem is there aren't a lot of good news sources on this yet, I think. Yeah. Let me see. Hold on, I'm looking here. It's an obvious question, and none of the media people are talking about it. It's an obvious question, how many shells that is, but they're not saying. Do I think NATO will come into conflict this year? No, not this year, but eventually. Eventually, yes. Hey, mods, we've got a troll over on YouTube. Please, somebody go and knock him off. Yeah. It's the guy with BBC in his name. He's a troll. Actually, I'd report him as well because he's doing sex stuff too, which is a good reason to have YouTube kill his account. Thanks, Amanda. All right. Yeah, report it too if you can. That's a good question. I don't know. Daniel says, are middle-of-the-road Republicans going to hold their nose and vote Biden? Maybe. The big question there is, it's one thing for Republicans to say, oh, Donald Trump, he's just too much. Does that mean they're going to vote against him if it's him versus Biden? Nikki Haley, who's the Republican who's left, running against Trump, who's very critical and really calls him out appropriately, still say, he's a threat to democracy, he's an embarrassment, this kind of stuff, right? still says she's going to vote for him. She's going to come out and support him if he's the nominee. So what's the freaking point? And that's, thank you, Prince Phyllis. That's where it comes down to is, in the end, these people saying they can't, Republicans can't stomach Donald Trump anymore. Not even are they going, oh yeah, and she just said she was going to pardon him too. Exactly, Lynn said. It's not just a question of will they vote for Biden? Will they not vote for Trump? Right? I mean, that's the question. So now I'm almost more sympathetic of them not voting for Biden, right? I mean, I'm more sympathetic to them just saying don't vote at all or vote for somebody that isn't Trump, because that still helps a lot. You're taking votes away from Trump. Obviously, it helps to give votes to Biden, but I can understand that that's difficult if you're a lifelong Republican voting for a Democrat, whatever. I mean, I'm a little more sympathetic to that, but you don't vote for the bad guy, and it doesn't matter because Biden, like I said, have all the concerns you want about Biden. The worst you can say about Joe Biden is he's old. Yeah, he is old. And you know what? He dies, somebody else takes over. I mean, it's really not the end of the world. I don't think he's going to die, but who cares? It's not like, we're not talking about if Joe Biden becomes president, there won't be any more elections in America. That you're literally going to have the Justice Department going after political opponents, which is what Trump is ordering them to do and has said he's going to order them to do. And frankly, he told them to do last time and they refused to do it. Thank you, Daniel. This time, Trump says he's going to do it. Oh, there's also another thing, too. I've got to talk about this. The Trump thing, you've got to Google this 2025 project, which is he's got a whole, and of course, who else is behind it? Stephen Miller, who's really Trump's chief fascist in charge. Thank you, Lamb Chop, who recently got married to a woman, which was interesting. And he is in charge of this project to basically fire the federal workforce. They believe in our country, it's different in every country. I know this. In our country, the top levels of agencies are political and they get replaced by the actual president each time. The rest of the agencies are just employees. They work for everybody because it's not politics they're doing, right? They're just working on whatever their agency works on. Trump wants to fire them all and replace them all with political activists. All the agencies, even though there's lots of protections, he wants to take away the protections and do it. The other thing he complained about is, and this is this 2025 project, Trump complained that he is very upset that last time when he tried to break all the laws and they wouldn't let him, he wanted to use the U.S. military at home, which is illegal, and use them to break up protests, which is illegal. Head of the military said no. He was considering going to war with China. The head of the military freaked out because the concern was Trump was going to declare war on China after he lost the election. And there was real concern. He wants, and the head of the military talked to the other military heads and said, if he tries to declare war on China or use nukes, you contact me first. Because Trump lost his mind after the election, literally lost his mind and went crazy. Oops. Oh, Marianne's back. Interesting. Sorry, maybe Marion's here today. I don't. She's texting me. She's texting me a post about Starlink. Well, let me look at it in a second, Marion. We were saying. I'm sorry, I got spaced. You threw me. Although that's okay, Marion. I like getting the tips though, as I'm coming through here. Anyway, I can't remember now. Kennedy's a lunatic. I mean, if you're a Republican, vote for Kennedy, please. But RFK Jr. is an absolute crazy lunatic. He's a conspiracy theorist. I mean, he's literally a crazy man. Once upon a time, he was very liberal. And his big issue was the environment, which was nice because he was a supporter of the environment, and that was nice. Then he went crazy on the vaccine thing. And I've talked about this before, but not just, first of all, I am not sympathetic to people who are anti-vaccine. I think it is a conspiracy theory, but whatever, right? Kennedy is a whole other level of conspiracy. He doesn't worry that some vaccines might cause autism, which again, there's no proof, but some people think that, right? I mean, I think it's crazy, but whatever. He thinks all vaccines are dangerous. He said, I saw the tape. I saw him on TV with the tape. He didn't deny it. He last summer said, there isn't a single vaccine in America proven safe, and there isn't a single vaccine in America proven effective. All vaccines are not effective and all vaccines are not safe, he claimed. Okay? The man is literally crazy. And he's in bed with all the crazy people. All the people supporting his campaign, for example, David Sachs, who's the Elon Musk crony, who's actually a Ron DeSantis supporter. Oh, well, poor David lost on that one. David is also pro-Putin. He's super pro-Putin in the war with Ukraine. Sachs is an RFK booster, and Elon are too. Big surprise, because they're trying to hurt Biden and get the Republicans elected. RFK's insane. He didn't deny it. Correct. That was it. Yes, George. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I thought you were saying he denied it. Yeah, RFK did deny it. It was great. I told you guys this before. It was on CNN a couple weeks ago. And the host goes, last summer you said that there isn't a single vaccine proven safe and there isn't a single vaccine proven effective. I didn't say that. She goes, okay, play the tape. And they played the tape from the summer, literally a couple months ago, of RFK Jr., and they played like a minute of it, saying just that. And he goes, well, he didn't say the tape was fake, by the way. He admitted it was real. Well, no, as I've said, he's not just a conspiracy theorist, but he doesn't even have the courage of his convictions. That's the thing. He doesn't even have the courage of his convictions. He won't even defend. At least the anti-vaccine people, I think they're nuts, but at least they believe it. Like they'll tell you, oh yeah, I don't give my kids vaccines. I mean, I think it's absolutely crazy, but at least they admit it. RFK Jr. is the most extreme person out there, anti-vaccines, and totally gets called on it. And every time he gets called on it, that's not true. Please. Terry, what are you even talking about? That's not even true. Yeah. Thank you, mods. That was a good, yeah. It's all they've got. Oh my God. Maria Shriver, I'm sure she's not thrilled. Anyway, oh my God. All right, guys, what else we got? So what else is going on today, guys? What other news? That's a really good question, Range Death. I don't know. It's a damn good question. Range Death just asked, since the U.S. aid expired, how does that affect F-16 maintenance and resupply? They'd have to be maintained and resupplied by Europeans, first of all. Clearly I think Americans were not going to be on site, right? We were training the Ukrainians, and the Europeans are training them to actually upkeep the F-16s. So in principle, it shouldn't change anything. The spare parts, one assumes, other countries, what Lynn just said, one assumes that if, for example, the Netherlands is giving Ukraine F-16s, the Netherlands is giving Ukraine the spare parts for those F-16s. Yeah, that's not true. Mods, yeah, kill that person. The Russian trolls are still presenting this thing, which I find fascinating. The latest Russian troll talking point is this crazy thing that Vladimir Putin just cured cancer. Vladimir Putin can't even cure his own cancer. He just cured cancer. Yeah. No, Putin's very good at killing people, not very good at saving them. But killing them, he's an expert at. So yeah. But I find it interesting. Be aware of this, though, because I raise it not to elevate the troll, but to tell you guys it's something they brought up like every other night, and it's clearly a Russian talking point that they've told their people to put out there. This crazy thing that Putin, mind you, how freaking hard is it to, they don't care. This is the thing. This is the nature of political entities that lie and political people who just lie nonstop. They don't really care if there's no proof, because obviously a vaccine that cures cancer, people would know about it, right? There'd be people who were cured, and there'd be a huge study showing it works, right? None of that exists. So it's obviously a lie, but they don't care that it's a lie. They just want to put it out there so that you've got some crazy notion of, oh, Russia, it's such a nice place. Yeah, sure. You know, anyway. Anyway. Oh, I don't even know about that running, about Paris and the Olympics and security threats. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the nature of the security threats that they're facing, to be honest, you know? So, no idea. Oh, hey, Misha. Welcome back. You're telling us your political beliefs, CHW? That's nice. I guess that means you're a Republican nowadays, but that's nice. Since you guys are the ones in bed with the KGB colonel. Yeah, he's a troll. He's a troll. Thank you, Jen, for the gift there. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Thank you. To Rochelle. I've been to La Rochelle. I don't think that's where you mean, though. Where's Rochelle? Oops. I'm going to look at this really quick. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, okay. I'll read it afterwards. Sorry, Marian's was sending me a thing about Russia, Is Russia sending a delegation to Paris? What, for the, can they? I don't even know how that works. Russia, who knows who they're for? I mean, Putin is clearly for Trump, but Putin the other day gets asked, who are you for? And he goes, oh, I'm for Biden because Trump is crazy. Basically, which, a total lie. I mean, he now claims he doesn't like Trump because Trump is inexperienced and unpredictable. He literally got the guy elected, and he's been trying to get him reelected this whole time. The thing with Putin, you've got to remember, is he's a liar. And what I mean is he's KGB. Everything Putin says, and he's, I would say, very smart politically in this regard. If you're really good at politics, every single thing you say is intended to back up your agenda. It's intended to back up your message so that you don't say, it's like playing chess. You don't make any moves that are flippant. You don't make any moves that are like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll move this, right? Everything Putin says, he says for a reason. Putin felt it was important, and I don't quite know why, to publicly bash Donald Trump and publicly defend Biden. He also, and this is bizarre, Putin also came out and said, I don't know why they talk about Biden's mental abilities. Thank you, Daniel. I met him 2 or 3 years ago, and it totally was not true. He was clearly all there. There's something going on, and I don't know. I don't know with Putin. He suddenly has decided he needs to defend Biden, or it's good to defend Biden, and it's good to attack Trump, because he was suggesting that Trump was unpredictable and Trump was inexperienced, and that's dangerous or bad for foreign policy, which it is dangerous for foreign policy. But if Putin says it, he's not saying it because he believes it's true. He's saying it because he's up to something. That's what's going on. Hey, Boris. How you doing, Boris? Sorry, there we go. Thank you, guys. Thank you, mods. That was a troll. That was a Russian lover. That Jim Carrey is Joe Biden. Jim Carrey, the comedian. Oh, these people will believe anything. Anyway, no, but the Putin thing, you can't believe what Putin says anyway. He's playing games. It certainly isn't what he believes. He's playing some game on SNL. Is Jim Carrey playing Biden on SNL? When was that? I missed that. Saturday Night Live is an American comedy show that's been around for 50 years. It's wonderful. And they typically have people playing the presidents and stuff. When did Carrey play Biden? That's a good idea, actually. Was that a while ago, or what? I'm like vaguely not remembering this. Last season. Okay, so it was last year. Okay, that's funny. I just not totally remembering it. Yeah. He didn't do a good job. Okay, I just don't remember. Yeah. It's too bad because you'd think he might do a good job, but doesn't mean he did. Yeah. Anyway, what else, guys? What else? Oh, man. Oh, God. Why are Republicans trying to have a dictatorship? Because it's the only way they can win the presidency. But quite seriously, it's something like 7 of the 8 last elections, Republicans lost the popular vote. Think about this. When Donald Trump became president and he beat Hillary Clinton, Hillary got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump did. Our system is so screwed up that the person with the most votes isn't the one who wins. It's this whole weird, crazy game. Thank you, user. And in this case, and thank you, Cynthia, for the roses. In this case, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. He became president. Al Gore in 2000, the Democratic vice president to Bill Clinton. Al Gore got more votes than George Bush, the younger George Bush. George Bush became president. Our system, Republicans can't really win the presidency based on votes, and Republicans can't really win control of the U.S. Senate based on votes, or the House of Representatives. They're able to do it. Well, it's kind of screwed up. The Senate's a little different because the Senate's state by state. But what you've got is when Republicans control the U.S. Senate, they're doing it with a minority of votes. So they've got an incredible minority of the total votes in the U.S. Republicans have a small number, but things are divided up so that they win. They know they can't win the presidency. They can't if we have fair elections. Trump, having said that, I really don't get it because honestly, it reminds me of my Greek aunt who was sort of famous in her own right, telling me she was critical of Hillary Clinton for standing by Bill Clinton. And at one point I told her, and I said, but I understand why she's doing it because, in 2000, it was her turn. They left the White House. She put through a lot of BS, or she put up with a lot of BS from him, the womanizing and everything. And she decided it was finally time it was her turn. And she had helped him get to the presidency. He damn well was going to help her get to the Senate or the White House, like it was her turn, right? So I understand, and I said, I understand where she's coming from. And my aunt said to me, your self-respect is worth more than some job. And I remember she said it, I was like, whoa, like 93-year-old Greek aunt. I was like, whoa. And she's not wrong, and Republicans, yeah, you might not win the White House. Shouldn't you care more about your country? I mean, you're literally sucking up to a foreign dictator, not just a foreign dictator, one of America's oldest enemies. And currently one of America's China is the big enemy for the long term. Russia is the enemy for the near term and the medium term. They're our biggest enemy right now. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. They want political power and they realize they've got to lie to do it. They've got to cheat to do it. They've got to steal to do it. And especially because Donald Trump is the first one to come out and literally say, let's lie, cheat, and steal. The Republicans are like, okay, I guess we'll do it. But it's not the party of morality. Remember, they were the moral majority, was like the religious people supporting the Republicans. They're not about morality. They're not about ethics. They're not about national defense. They're not about love of country. They hate our country. They love the Russians. They hate us. And they keep siding with the Russians over us. Trump literally made excuses for Navalny's murder. He used Navalny's murder to criticize the U.S. today. He literally criticized the U.S. and said, Navalny's murder, that's happening here in America to me. We're just as bad as they are. No, these guys hate our country. They are not the old Republican Party. They're not. The old Republican Party at least loved our country. I think they did. I was a member. I thought they did. I thought they cared about national defense. Now I'm thinking they don't really care about anything. They want a strong man. They want a fascist. And whatever the fascist says, they'll go along with it. It's really just amazing. Absolutely amazing. How much Russian army and tanks have been destroyed in Ukraine? The number I want to say of tanks is 3. The number just came out the other day. I believe the tanks is like 3,000 Russian tanks, but they're making new ones and they're using a lot of old ones, like from museums and everything else that they're fixing up. The number of troops killed, I have not seen a good estimate. The number a while ago was possibly even 200,000 troops killed. But we don't know. All these numbers are classified, so we just don't know. The number being thrown out there is 300,000 killed or injured. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's more, because also, especially lately when the Russians were trying to take these towns in the east, they don't care if their men die. And they're just throwing their men, in the way that none of our countries would do, just throwing these men to be killed. Thank you, Joe. Because in the end, it'll help them win, even if they just kill all their troops. It's just crazy. Yeah. 12,000 tanks? I remember, or was 3,000 the last year or something? I saw 3,000 was the estimate, but I don't know if that was recent or if that was since the war started. I thought it was since the war started. But anyway. But we did, Prowhit. What, remember we couldn't find $5 billion for a border. We have $150 billion for Ukraine. Actually, it's $100 billion for Ukraine, not $150 billion. Nice lie. Also, we found the money for the border. Your guys killed it. Good question. I'm glad you brought that up. By the way, mods, mute that person. But I'm glad they brought up the lie, because it gives me a chance to talk about the fact that Republicans in Congress killed the border deal. We had the most conservative deal in decades, negotiated by conservative Republicans. Conservative Republican Jim Langford, a senator from Oklahoma, who's as conservative right-wing as you get, negotiated the deal. Democrats caved. They went along with it. And what did Trump do? Basically, Democrats called that guy's bluff. He said, why don't you do anything on the border? They called the bluff, and Democrats said, okay, we'll do it your way. No amnesty. We'll shut down the border. We'll do everything. Trump said, no, don't do it. Don't do it. That's it. Trump said no, and they killed the deal. The Republicans killed their own deal that they negotiated, guys. That's how bad what is happening in the Republican Party is. So when you see people, the pro-Russian people say, why can't we do anything about the border, but we can do something about Ukraine? That's the funny thing. We did fix the border 2 weeks ago. And the Republican, Donald Trump, said, Google, it's all over the news. Donald Trump said, kill the deal. Because Trump, and they did. Because Trump can't afford to have the border problem fixed. Trump wants thousands of people crossing our border illegally every day between now and the election. That's possibly 200,000 or 300,000 people coming illegal. No, I'm sorry. 2 to 3 million people coming illegally into our country for the next 10 months because Donald Trump needs the border to be a crisis. He literally killed the deal to fix it. So, yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. Nice try, because this is the pro-Putin crowd, trying to say we shouldn't help Ukraine until we stop illegal immigration from Mexico. Now, why the hell we can't do both is beyond me, right? Why can't we defend American national security abroad and stop a war in Europe and stop illegal people from crossing the border from Mexico? Let's do both. Well, Democrats finally called Republicans bluff and said, okay, let's do it. And Trump freaked out and killed it. And again, I may not be explaining this well enough. He killed it because Trump can't afford to have Biden go into the election and say, I fixed it. I got together with Republicans. Look at how I worked with the conservative Republicans, liberal Democrats. We all got together. We solved the problem. You don't need Donald Trump to do it because we already did it. And Donald Trump has decided the border is the number one issue he wants to run on. He can't afford to have the border fixed because then he has nothing to run on. He literally killed the deal. Again, it was all over the news. I mean, all the Republicans admitted it. Republicans were pissed. A number of Republicans in the Congress were pissed and said just that. They said, so we're not going to fix the problem because it helps his run for the presidency. You know? Oh, hound. Biden may or may not. Biden didn't actually create the problem because the problem was there during the build the wall, right? That it was there during the Trump years too. The problem is I think Biden didn't help. Biden isn't nearly conservative enough on immigration for my tastes, but guess what? We almost fixed the problem, and your party killed it. Donald Trump killed it. It's not even debatable. The illegal people who are crossing the border, a couple million between now and the election, thank you, Timothy, are crossing our border illegally because the MAGA Republicans let them in to help Donald Trump. That's it. Yeah. No, nobody. Donald Trump didn't address it. Joe Biden didn't address it. But guess what? We finally had a deal. What happened to Gunther? Somebody didn't ban Gunther, did you? On YouTube? Hoping not. I saw what Sword for Justice said. Hoping not. Anyway. Yeah, it's always been, my God. Guys, I was like doing some work on this issue back in 1999. Oh, Gunther from Friends, he died. We know that. But I was working this issue in 1999. This issue's been a problem for decades. You know? Oh, you're there. Okay, good. Sorry, somebody mentioned you were banned. I got worried. All right. Well, I assumed Manda wouldn't do it, but I was like, ruh-roh, what happened? As I know, sometimes people get banned by accident. I've done it. I famously did it. I banned our lead moderator during one of my first lives on YouTube. I was trying to get a Russian troll. I banned the moderator and then gave the Russian troll moderator privileges. That was the worst thing. I was like, oh my God, Gunther from Friends, he got testicular cancer and died, and he kept not getting. He never got checked. He skipped. I believe he didn't go for physicals and things. So by the time they diagnosed it, he was basically terminal. Oh, it was a horrible. This happened a couple of years ago. It was a horrible story. He did interviews. Which to his credit, did interviews to try to, promote the fact that it's a big deal. Well, Manda's there. If there's more trolls, she'll get them. Yeah, Manda, just keep an eye that there's about sort of who's on YouTube. They're discovering YouTube. Dun dun dun. Oh, God, I don't think he would. Tired Guy says, do you think the Democrats should try and recruit Chris Christie, who's a Republican former governor of New Jersey, to stump for Biden to appeal to sane Republicans? I mean, I don't know whether Christie would. Mitt Romney came out. I think sorry, my nose is itching. I think Romney just said this. I just saw a video today that Midas Touch was sharing of Romney saying he's not voting for Trump. He goes, I'm not voting for that man, which was very interesting. I was very, very critical, which is good, you know? So, you know, man. Yeah, well, too bad, Keps. Every single day she was posting stuff that was rude. Every single day. She'd complain every day about the ads. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous, the stuff she was doing. So, yeah, I'd like her back. Everyone's welcome back. But I don't need people criticizing me literally every day. It's rude after a while, especially when you're trying to do a show and it interrupts. It's just incredibly rude. So, and she'd been called out by the mods. I found out later about it, too. And she didn't stop. So, yeah, not cool. Very not cool. I didn't kick anybody. Nobody's been kicked. No, she wasn't kicked off. I did call her out, though, because I'd had it with her criticizing me every day. And apparently she didn't like that, but too bad. She was criticizing ads on YouTube. We shouldn't have ads. Well, yeah, in a perfect world, I shouldn't have to pay my mortgage either. But, you know, I do this. This is literally my job, and I do it full time. You know, well, and thank you, Danny. She wasn't even. I mean, I don't want to go after her, but she wasn't even a subscriber. Anyway, I don't want to be mean to people, but no, it was rude. I don't like people when they play games with the advertising and stuff. You don't like YouTube ads? Well, guess what? I mean, yeah, ads are part of the game. It's like newspaper ads, or frankly, paying for newspapers is the same thing. Thanks, Jordan. Right? I don't like having to pay for newspapers, but you know. They're a business. How are they supposed to pay people if you get it for free? You know? Anyway. 5 Republicans are leaving the House. I saw that multiple Republicans are leaving, including a rather senior one recently. Yeah, they're not running again, which is interesting. You know? It's not weird that this is keeping you up at night. It's funny. I was being kept up at night at the beginning of the war. I would literally wake up at like 3 a.m. and check the news and stuff. I'm not doing that now. But you know, and again, maybe it's because I lived through the Cold War. What worries me is this is the Cold War. We were always at risk of going to war with the Soviet Union, and we are now at risk of going to war with Russia. It's the Cold War. So I'm not necessarily terrified of it because this is what I've been through before. I'm old enough, you know, that I was around during this. I mean, I was an adult during the Soviet Union, that I'm not scared of it, but I'm worried. Maybe is a better way of putting it, you know? Thanks, Roswell. You know? I mean, it's not good. Gunnerman says this is worse because Russia's invaded. To a degree, you're not wrong. Yeah. I mean, Russia is invading. No, actually, no. That's not totally true. That's not totally true. Russia invaded too in 56 and 68 in Hungary and Czechoslovakia. Russia invaded there too. You know? Old enough, J-Ro. Old enough to have been an adult during the Soviet years. Let's put it that way. So, no, I got out of graduate school and the Soviet Union was still around for 2 years. So, but no, I mean, you should be worried. Again, the thing is, I guess, to freak you out a little bit less, this is the whole nature of foreign policy and foreign affairs. You know, like it's all about wars and things. That's sort of, and threats abroad and national security and keeping the country safe. And I mean, and things like Israel and Gaza. Or, I mean, this is what foreign policy is. It's about wars. We don't like them, but they exist and they happen. So like, I get less freaked out in the sense that it's part of the work. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's worrisome. Yeah. Yeah. But it's sort of like anybody who works on defense issues. Per se, your entire job is dealing with threats to your country, you know? So hopefully you learn not to internalize that and make it like panicky. You know, the doomsday clock, growing up, I thought it was kind of interesting. Now I feel like it's just kind of a gimmick. You know, the doomsday clock is this clock that the Federation of American Scientists or whoever it is sets, and it's like 6 minutes to midnight, 3 minutes to midnight, and it's how close we are to nuclear war. You know, the thing too is I think like the nuclear war thing is, no, exactly, Cold War does not mean nuclear. No. Cold War is a term, you know, from the Soviet years. And a Cold War, the idea was, I'm probably going to explain this poorly. I think of Cold War as being not a hot war. A hot war means we're shooting at each other, okay? A cold war is we're not shooting at each other, but we're still trying to destroy each other. And we could be trying to do it with trade sanctions. We're trying to do it via third parties, via proxy wars, right? In places like Ukraine or Afghanistan or wherever, right? Where Vietnam, the Russians were there helping the Vietnamese or the North Vietnamese. We're trying to destroy each other, but we're not firing at each other directly, so it's a Cold War. That was the notion of the Cold War. So that's, I think we're back to that now. Russia is evil again. Yes. They are the Soviet Union again. Yes. Yes. Putin is a Soviet dictator. Yes. And they're hell-bent on destroying us. Yes. And it's unfortunate because it's whatever. Lots of spying, but they're spying. We have lots of spying with China anyway. China spying isn't necessarily Cold War. There is lots of spying anyway. Do Russia's nukes work? Who knows? It's a good question. But you have to assume they do. We can't just assume they don't, and then all of a sudden they do, and we screwed up. Yes, that's because, Misha, nobody considers Transnistria a real country. It's a sliver of Moldova that was invaded by the Russian government. That's why nobody considers it a real country, because it's not. So, the AI, I don't know if AI will matter, but who knows? AI might matter. AI will certainly be used by the Russians to screw with us. Well, there was no testing. We've had sort of mutually agreed to not testing up until, I don't know when the last time is. When's the last time we had a nuclear test? I don't remember. When was the last time, guys? Well, Maddie, the Navalny thing is complicated. The guy was still a hero. The guy was still trying to take down a dictator, and the guy gave his life taking down a dictator. So, no, there was something recent, but I don't remember what it was exactly. Yes, I read about the UK's laser weapons. I did read about that. There was something. His wife very well could die next. Navalny's, yeah. Let me look. Hang on a second. Let me look at. Come on. Here's my thing. Yeah, let me see. U.S. nuclear. There was some kind of a test, but I'm forgetting what it was. Let me list here. I'm pulling it up. But it's listing them through 1992. Something different happened since 1992. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing what. Yeah, I'm trying to sort of see. But I know what Tulakivi's talking about. There was something else going on. I don't trust Alexa on this one. I'm not finding it now. I don't know. Anybody got the answer on this? I don't know. We tested a missile, not a nuke. Maybe that's it then. Yeah, because, of course, right, we don't need to test our nukes because ours work. Here we go, AP. So here we go. This is because of the Russians pulling out. Associated Press last fall. Scientists charged with ensuring the aging U.S. stockpile of nuclear weapons are good to go if needed say they'll start shipping key components to Nevada's desert next year to prepare for underground testing they call tickling the dragon's tail. Experts at National Defense Laboratories haven't been able to physically validate the effectiveness and reliability of nuclear warheads since a 1992 underground test ban, but Energy Department officials announced Thursday they're on the verge of piecing together the technology needed to do the next best thing. As early as 2027, the $1.8 billion Scorpius project will make it possible to move beyond theoretical computer modeling to study in much more detail the conditions found inside the final stages of a nuclear weapon implosion, but without the nuclear explosion. The experiment approaches but stays below the stage at which the fission of nuclear materials sustains an ongoing chain reaction. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have not had nuclear explosions, and we're still looking at not having nuclear explosions. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. I I know, tickling the dragon's tail. It does sound a little dicey. Like, okay. Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Did not know that. You know? So, very interesting. Anyway. I wasn't trash talking you, Kelly. You were rude. You came every day and were criticizing me and criticizing the feed, and it's rude. I don't like people doing that. You're free to stay here, but just don't do it. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't want to hear the criticism. It's rude. And that's what I called you out on because I'd had it. So, and the mods told me later they'd also told you repeatedly to stop it. So don't even start right now. Sorry, having a little fight with somebody on YouTube right now. So yeah, don't even. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it in the chat. So, yeah. What else, guys? Although it's already been an hour and a half, so I think I'm gonna get going shortly anyway. So, nukes and bikini, but that was Bikini Atoll. That was, what was it? 50 years, 60 years ago? When was that? I don't even remember. I hear you, Sasha. I know. Sasha's starting to whine. She knows it's time for her teeth brushing. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm gonna head out. All right, it's time. I get the info from all over the place. I mean, I just read a lot of news before, in the hours before the show, and just grab it from all over the place. Just sources I trust, but, sort of mainstream news all over the place. But again, sort of news sources I trust. I'm very rarely giving you something from some, secret source I've got or something. It's it's more aggregating, like Chase said, but I try to aggregate the news as somebody with a background in, thank you, Super Hornet, in foreign policy issues and and being in the media and everything else. So I try to at least look at stories with a sense to picking the stories that I believe, the stuff that sounds real, that's coming from sources I trust. So again, who knows, but I try to sort of vet it to make sure it's real, or at least it's coming from stuff that sounds real. So thank you, adventurers. I know I did. I mentioned that earlier, Deb. Yeah, the Russian pilot that defected looks like he was shot and killed by the Russians, which in Spain, which is too bad. All right, let me go, guys. I'll talk to you later. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good evening, TikTok and YouTube. I will see you folks tomorrow. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the mods. Thank you. I'm going to say Maya. I'll call you MYA. Thank you for the thanks, and I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. Okay. Thank you all. Have a good night. All right. See y'all. All right. Bye-bye.